Hey, Business 150, Introduction to Management. This is now video 2 in our module looking at the topic of control. And in this particular video, we are looking at the control process. What is the standardized normal process that we use to enact control over all the different elements and variables that we need to exercise managerial control over? We hope that after the end of this video, you'll be able to examine the process through which managers develop and implement control. Well, what are we talking about? Well, when you need to control any process, whether it's a production process, a financial process, a sales process, a production process, the control process consists of 4 basic steps. The first step is, what do you set as your benchmark standard? What do you want this variable to be? What do you want quarterly sales to come in at? What do you want production costs to maximize at? What do you set as your standards? So you set your ideal benchmark standards, number 1. Number 2, you then measure actual performance. You set a standard, but what are you actually doing? What are your salespeople actually selling? What is your machinery actually producing? What are the costs you're actually having to pay? Number 3, you compare actual performance against your stated standards. Are you over? Are you under? By how much? How much is the variance? How much are you over every single period that you measure? And then finally, number 4, you evaluate whether you're going to take corrective action, and if you are, what is that corrective action? You see, the whole point of this is when you compare performance against standards, number 3, you have a decision to make. If there are discrepancies between actual performance and your standard, what are you going to do? You could, 1, work to correct the deviations, whatever they may be. Number 2, you may actually decide, I think the performance standards that I established in step 1 were incorrect. I have to revise the standards. Or 3, you could say, okay, there's a discrepancy, but it's not enough to do anything over. We're simply going to maintain the status quo. And here is an illustration from the textbook of how this all works. Figure 15.1 in the textbook, you see here, step 1, you establish your stated standards. And then number 2, you measure what your actual performance is. And then after comparing performance against standards, you get to decide, am I going to correct the deviation? Am I going to change the standard? Or am I going to maintain the status quo? Now, let me see if I can give you an example of this. Let's say that, again, we are talking about sales revenue. And so you state for the month what you want your salespeople to accomplish in terms of a bottom line acceptable level of monthly sales. You've stated that number, you've communicated it to your salespeople, and then at the end of the month, you measure what is the actual sales revenue for the month. And then you get to decide, wait a minute, we aren't at the standard. Well, the question is, are you below the standard or are you above the standard? If you're below the standard, how do you need to adjust and correct that? Do you need to retrain your salespeople? Do you need to hire more salespeople? Do you need to replace some salespeople? Right? You get to decide. And of course, some of that depends upon, well, what you know about the skill level of your sales staff, what you know about the marketplace, what you know about the level of training you provided them, right? All of those kinds of things. Also, how large is the discrepancy? Did you miss your sales projection by $1? Or did you miss your sales projection by $10,000? That makes a huge difference, doesn't it, right? Or, let me ask another question. Well, what if your sales performance is above your stated standard? Then you have a different set of decisions, right? Do you simply let it go and say, hey man, we beat it, congratulations guys? Or do you say, maybe my people are so capable, I need to increase the benchmark standard we're looking for to set a higher target for them, right? Those are the kinds of things you have to decide as a result of, well, here's what my standard is, and here's where we actually came in, right? So this is the normal performance control process. We put in whether or not we're talking about sales revenue, production processes, chemical reactions to refine petroleum products. Wherever we're talking about setting control processes in place. These are the standard 4 steps in every control process. So we hope that as the result of this, you are able to examine the process through which managers develop and implement control, and we'll see you in the next video.